All right, guys. So sorry about technical difficulties. If you guys are listening in now, and I see two people on right now, so it looks like I just sent out the new link, so I doubt you guys are all on here yet. But if any of you or one of you are, we should be all ready to get going here in just a minute or two. Thanks. All right, there we go. All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties there, guys. Hopefully, you guys can all hear me and see me now. Um, Yeah, we just had some computer issues, which we were all ready to go, and then it happened, and then we had to fix it all. So sorry about that again. Um, very exciting module tonight. It's actually my last module that I will be teaching. The next one, which is the actual last module, will be taught by Chris. So this one is my last one. So that's kind of exciting. I'll probably be showing up for the last one near the end of it anyway. But I actually made this one to be kind of like how I would end this, I guess, if I was the one teaching it. So I'm going to give you guys a lot of, I guess, homework and a lot of stuff to think about going forward. This being towards the end of the course now. This, I think we've said this since the beginning, this whole thing is a journey. And although throughout the Charisma Decoded course, you guys have been learning this stuff for the past 6 weeks, it doesn't end here. It keeps going. And it is a lifelong commitment in a lot of ways. I've been doing this for 10 years, professionally for 10 years, and probably really into studying it and learning about it for probably closer to 12 years, maybe 13 years. And even now, I still, find myself looking back a year earlier thinking, oh man, I've learned so much in the past year. So it really just keeps going and going and going. And, the older you get, not only by focusing and pursuing the knowledge, you also learn things just from getting older as well, which is an interesting perspective that I hadn't thought of when I was younger. So it's a continuous growth. So today, that's the topic. It's the power of pursuit, which I'm going to reference a couple times, specifically what I mean by that, and how it sort of should dictate the way that you guys move forward after this course. So looks like we got a number of you guys on here right now, so we'll jump in. Again, sorry about the watermark you'll probably be seeing down in the lower left-hand corner where it says Wirecast. This has to do with the technical issues. That's going to be there for the rest of the presentation, unfortunately, because we couldn't, and it's a long story, but anyway, so just try to ignore that, but we'll jump into the presentation now. All right, the power of pursuit. So I started again with a nice quote here. Victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting. Now, this is from Napoleon Hill, who is the author of a book called Think and Grow Rich, which is probably one of the most influential books ever written for, I mean, I would say business, but it goes into a lot more than just, how it sort of relates to business. Very interesting book. It's actually, spoiler alert, it is part of your homework for this module to actually go and find and read this book. And the reason why is because it was written in like the 1800s, and essentially what happened was this guy Napoleon Hill here got together like basically the richest people in the world, the most successful people, and interviewed them all and asked them what success looks like and how they got their success. And the answers would really surprise you, because I'll give you a hint. It's not really just hard work and determination. There's a lot of other factors that go into it that you may not be what you think. And anyway, so it's a really great book. I highly recommend it. I think most of the successful people, even today, usually mention that book as something that really helped them. And I read it when I was 23, I think, and it completely changed the way that I go through my life. Very, 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 very good. So I do recommend that. And of course, the quote itself has to do with this whole module, and I think it's powerful. Victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting. I think the biggest problem with guys, whether it be in business or relationships or just any sort of pursuit of anything, is they give up. Our ego, our self-doubt gets in the way, and we think, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not the kind of guy that can do this, and we give up. And to be honest, I think the biggest people that take our course, and one of the reasons why we wanted to create Charisma Decoded, was that with the 3-day course, the biggest thing that happened to a lot of our students is that after the 3 days, so they went out with us, we taught them, we went out, and they learned a bunch of stuff, and they had a great weekend. But then the next weekend, they go out, we're not there to push them. And when we're not there to push them, and we're not there to give them the feedback, all it takes is one bad interaction or one failure, and they think, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Their ego kicks in. And that's what we kept hearing more and more from our clients, is that they tell us, oh, I kind of dropped off of it. I was really into it. I took the weekend seminar, and then the next week I didn't really go out, and the week after that, I went out and maybe did a couple approaches and talked to a few women, and it just didn't really work, so I basically put it on the back burner for a while. And we hear that over and over and over again. So what I really want to get driven across here, and the reason why I put that quote on, is because you can't give up. You can't see that failure as something that, it's really easy to say, oh, this isn't for me. I'm not the guy that can do this. That's really easy to do. And anyway, the point is, I want you guys to take some ownership and refuse to back down from the scary endeavor of getting good at this. And it is very scary, and it is going to be something you guys are going to go and have really uncomfortable situations throughout the process of getting good at this. And maybe, it sounds like from reading the Facebook group, a lot of you have already been putting yourselves through a couple of those, so that's good. And there's going to be more. And so you just have to understand that this is something this is what you need to go through to get good at this. You need to go through this pain, for lack of a better word. All right, so let's keep going. Persistence. Okay, so a nice picture of Rocky Balboa here. Not really any particular reason why I chose that, other than I think he's probably a good example of persistence. Never giving up. Having all the odds against you, but just refusing to be knocked down. And that was sort of the idea behind this. So I'm going to reference a little bit in these few points things that I learned from Think and Grow Rich. And the basic premise of the book is that thoughts are things. And in order to achieve something, you have to start with a thought. And it's going to be different, obviously, depending on what it is that you want to achieve. But it all starts with a thought. And the one thing that all you guys have in common is that you all came to Charisma Decoded with the thought of, I wish I could be better with, let's say women, or being a more charismatic individual in social situations. I wish I could be better. So you had the guts, I guess, to go and sign up for a course, and that's maybe what led you here. And that's great, and that takes a lot of balls. But the thing is, that was just one thing in particular. The charisma aspect. There's no such thing as just a man who is very charismatic because he chose to be charismatic. There's a lot of things that add up that make him that way. And so those are the things I want you guys to start thinking about. But thoughts in this way can essentially be replaced with goals. So you want to start with a thought that is associated with that goal. So whatever that is, and we'll get into this later on in the module here, about what exactly the kind of goals you guys should be setting. But just understand that it starts with a thought. The big problem, I think, with a lot of guys is that they see problems as a whole instead of pieces that you need to sort of tackle one at a time. And but anyway, so you got to start with a thought of something that you want to do, and then you have to basically not give up on that thought. It should be something that just stays in your mind. And you need to pursue it. Pursue the thought. So if it's something like, well, I want to be better with women, more charismatic, which again is the thing you guys all have in common, you need to pursue that. And part of that pursuit brought you here, again. But you need to look for these sort of paths you can take in every one of the thoughts and goals that you have, whether it be making more money, whether it be maybe getting a specific job that you want, achieving something. You need to start pursuing it. And this is when I'm talking about the power of pursuit, what I'm really getting at is that most people that want things don't actually go after them. This is sort of the big issue with, I think, men nowadays, is that they just want things. They just want to have them. But they don't understand that in order to have these things, there needs to be a not just hard work, but a conscious choice to go after it and to see the way to get it all around you and to pursue the paths that lead to it. And you may not end exactly where you thought you would end up, but you will end up somewhere. But most will refuse to even start that. They'll just want it without understanding that it doesn't really work that way. So start with a thought. You pursue the thought. The more you, and this is the weird. This is the part where it gets a bit weird. What you'll find is that when you decide to start pursuing it, solutions and ways in which you can get it start appearing. And I guess the more rational part of me would say that they were always there. You just never noticed them because you weren't pursuing it. But it does feel very strange when you decide one day that you want to do something, maybe something really specific, and then all of a sudden you start noticing, you decide, oh, you know what, I would really like to learn, Krav Maga, let's say. And then all of a sudden the next day, you're walking down the street and you see a flyer on a telephone pole that says, oh, Krav Maga classes, $10 a lesson, and it's a block away from your house. And you start to think, did that pop up? Was that always there? And I just never noticed it? Or did this just pop up because I'm actively looking for this now? And I don't really know the answer, to be honest, but I will tell you that it happens and you'll notice it. So just, keep that in mind. There is a magic to pursuit that is, although can be explained with rational sort of explanations, it's still, when it happens, it can be very weird. So just keep that in mind. Deal with speed bumps. So this has more to do with once you start the pursuit of it, there are going to be setbacks. And setbacks are essentially speed bumps. So they shouldn't, the idea being here that they shouldn't stop you. They should only maybe momentarily slow you down. So, if it's something where you're trying to get something, let's say a raise at work, or you're going after a job, you may find the perfect job and you get an interview and you think, this is it, I'm going to get it. Wow, who would have thought I would have found the most perfect, gotten an interview for the very exact job I'm looking for, and then you fail the interview. Now, a lot of guys may have that happen and they think, they may think, oh, I guess maybe this wasn't for me. Maybe this was all, I was silly to even think I could have this. And they give up. But that's only a speed bump. So you have to see these things as speed bumps. Whether it's going, you want to be the guy that can, we talked in one of the last modules, the guy that can talk to the hottest woman in the room, and you go to talk to her, and she completely rejects you, and you see that as, and maybe it hurt, maybe it was really embarrassing, and you think, man, you know what? Fuck this. This was so embarrassing. I felt like an asshole tonight. I do not want to put myself through this. And as soon as you start having those negative thoughts, that's how it starts. And for most guys, that's where it ends, and they never try again. So you have to see these things as speed bumps. You are going to get crazy rejection, but you got to be like Rocky here on the left. You got to take that hit and you got to stand back up again and be like, nah, fuck you, life. I'm gonna get this. I've decided I'm gonna get it. I don't care what you throw at me. You can put it in my hands, let me taste it and feel it and almost have it, but then take it away at the last second. And I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going for it. And that's the mentality you have to have if you want to get it. And I'll tell you this, I'm only 33 years old, but if there's one thing that I know about the world, it's that if you decide you want to get something and you know you can get it and you never give up on it, you will get it every single time. Unless it breaks like the law of thermodynamics or something. But otherwise, if it's something that you can actually do, and I guess that would tie in with the belief of whether or not you can actually have it. They say that if you, according to science, you can even walk through walls if there's a chance it can happen, so who knows. But anyway, you will get speed bumps, and you just have to be able to get through those. And the last one is obstacles are tests. And this is really how I look at them and how I think people should look at them. So in that same example I use, when you do get that thing where you almost get it, that you're so close to your goal, but then it's ripped from you at the last second. That's a test. Maybe you don't deserve that until you can understand what it feels like to almost have it and have it taken away from you. And again, it's not that I'm saying this in sort of like there's a higher power behind it who's trolling you. It's more that if you want something really great, the really great things in life are really hard to obtain. And they're really hard to obtain because most people give up along the way. And you have to not be one of those people. And that in and of itself, whether or not you actually achieve it or not, the fact that you don't give up on it, I think builds more character and provides something more valuable than the actual attaining of what it is that you're looking for in most cases. And like I said previously, if you don't give up, you get it anyway. So it's just a matter of time. All right. Who are you? So here's another probably familiar picture for you guys at this point, since I seem to include a picture of him in most of my modules. That's Errol Flynn, once again. Now, the reason why I put him on this time is there's a couple reasons. So I've talked before about how Errol Flynn was someone that I looked at as sort of the high watermark for charisma and his success with women and stuff. But here's something interesting that I actually don't know if I mentioned this already or not. I don't think I did. So when I was a kid, Robin Hood, here, I'll just put it on my face since this story is going to take a few minutes. When I was a kid, I watched The Adventures of Robin Hood. I was like 5 or 6 years old. The old Errol Flynn one from the 1930s. And I loved that movie. I was obsessed with it. I wanted to be Robin Hood when I was a kid, like when I grew up. And as I got a bit older, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, I watched all the Errol Flynn movies. And I really liked Errol Flynn because he always played this sort of adventurer kind of character. He's got a sword and he's the hero and he gets the girl. And he always has this what I consider to be the idea or the ideal version of a man. He didn't put up with shit. He went after what he wanted. Everyone liked him. He always managed to get these people to join his cause, whatever he was doing, whether it was mutiny on a ship or it was being Robin Hood and having his merry men or what have you. And that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was like, I want to be someone that travels the world and gets the girl and inspires men and goes on adventures. And when I got older, I realized that that's not a profession really. But I still never really gave up on that, thinking, no, that's what I want to do. That's the life that I want. I had that conviction, which I talked about in one of the first modules. And what ended up happening, you guys are probably aware of, is that my job kind of became that. 10 years ago, when I started doing this, that's kind of what my job was, and even still is a little bit to this day. Traveling the world, getting into adventures, inspiring men, and getting the girl. And I kind of, in a lot of ways, lived that life. And it was because when I was a kid, I decided that's what I wanted to do, and I never really gave up on it. Even when I got older and went to film school and university, and because I figured if I can't do it as a job, at least I can play a person like that in a movie. I wanted to be an actor, and that didn't work out, but I still managed to do this anyway. So just an example of, if you don't give up on it, even though it may sound impossible, it can still be done. And the funny thing is that I read Errol Flynn's autobiography, which is called My Wicked, Wicked Ways, which I think I might have referenced it in one of the first modules. And read it if you're interested in him, but especially seeing the life of a man that also kind of had that same dream. And that, when I read it, I only read it probably 60 years ago. His story and how he sort of lived his life is very similar to mine, which I thought was really interesting when I read it. But yeah, so if you are interested, read it. But essentially, he just wanted to go on adventures and have fun and get the girl and all that sort of stuff too, and he did. So anyway, so that's my example of and why I chose him as that picture here. All right, so go after something. Find your purpose. So that's what it really comes down to. I'm not saying quit your really safe job and go, be a, dolphin veterinarian or whatever it is that you want to do. I'm not necessarily saying that, but what I am saying is that you should make a conscious effort to pursue the thing that you're passionate about, or that you have a sense of purpose about. Doesn't mean drop everything you're doing and focus your life on it, but at least spend a portion of your life focusing on that. So, for me, when I was younger, before I wrote my first book, I was telling myself, I want to be a published author. Like, that's one of my big goals, purposes that I had. I wanted to have a book, to write a book. And I didn't have time to write full time, so I just chipped away at it in my free time. And eventually I finished the book and released it, and I have a second book I'm working on now, very slowly. But it's just one of those things, and there's probably 36 things like this that I've done, just chipping away at them. And we'll get into this more later, but you need to go after something. There needs to be something. And what happens is that as soon as you decide that you want something, so let's say you decide you want to be an actor, and you think, okay, I want to be a Hollywood actor. And you think, okay, well, how do I go about doing that? Well, maybe I should sign up for classes. I'll go sign up for classes. So you sign up for acting classes, and while you're at acting classes, you meet a young filmmaker that, he's just making small little low-budget films, but he wants to put you into it. And then while you're there, you make friends with the camera operator, and he shows you, how he's framing the shots and whatnot, and you start getting an interest in that. And you decide that, hey, you know what, I want to, do you mind if I, do a couple shots for the film? He lets you, and all of a sudden you find you have a passion for making, for using, doing cinematography. And you get really passionate about that and start researching every camera model, and it leads down a path in which you start making short films with, you being a cinematographer, and maybe you go down that path. But the point here is that you never would have known that unless you went after the original thing, even if that wasn't what it was that you ended up being really passionate about. But the point is that you went after something, and that's the point. You need to go after something. It doesn't have to be the thing that you think is going to be what you're going to make a career out of, or just even like a passing interest, or even trying new things. Man, some of the best stories of my life came about from me just trying something new, not really having an interest in it, but just wanting to try something new, and either ended up meeting someone or got caught up in some adventure based on the fact that I went after it. And it led to, things I have now in my life that I would never have, that I'm very grateful for if I had never gone after that. So it's very important, outside of, just getting better with women, you guys need to go after something else in your life. Again, I'm gonna give a lot of examples here later on, but I just want you guys to start thinking about this now. Live your life as the man that you wish to be. Now, this is one of those quotes you could probably expect to see on one of those motivational posters with like a picture of a guy like in the shadow of like a bigger man or something stupid. But the idea behind this is you need to start making a conscious effort to make the choices that the person that you would like to be would make. And I know I talked about this on the 6 C's of confidence, I just wanted to reiterate it here because this, especially going forward, is going to be very, very important because it comes down to making a conscious choice. And that's the hardest part. It's one thing to tell yourself, I want to be better. But it's another thing entirely to make the choices that the person that you would want to be would make, because they're often the hard choices. There's a reason you haven't been making those choices up until this point. It's because they're uncomfortable and they're difficult and they're fraught with embarrassing situations and peril and risks, which you'll need to obviously weigh when you do these. But for the most part, you need to start living your life as the man that you wish to be. So if you find yourself in a situation and you think, the guy that I'd like to be wouldn't put up with this, then guess what? You have to not put up with that. And you're going to fuck it up the first time. And you're going to fail, and you're going to get maybe punched, you're going to get rejected, you're going to get embarrassing shit's going to happen to you. But guess what? The next time it happens, there's a precedent. You've already made the choice to make that decision. The next time it happens, you're not going to fail, at least as spectacularly as you did the first time. And eventually, you'll do it, and you'll get it, and you'll never have to question that belief ever again, because now you are that person, and you are the guy that does that thing in that situation. But it needs to start somewhere, and that has to start today. So live your life as the man that you wish to be. It is a conscious choice. All the great men of history or of admiration, they weren't just like that. They had to make a choice to be that way. And that's the only thing separating us from them. You from the person you could be is the choices you make to live up to make the same choices they would. Have a code. So this has to do with the last one. And I think I mentioned this on the 6 C's as well. But essentially, you want to have a code that you live by. You always do the right thing. You help those in need. You don't let people talk to you a certain way. It's going to be individual to you guys, but you should have a code so that you don't have to think so much in these situations. It should make them a bit more black and white for you to make the process of acting on them that much quicker. So you just know that the one I used as the example a few modules ago. When you see a woman that you're attracted to, you have to say something to her. That could be one of your codes for all of you. When you see an attractive woman that you're attracted to, you have to tell her. That's it. You don't let people walk all over you. Could be another one. In any situation in which someone obviously disrespects you on purpose, you need to make sure that doesn't happen. So you call them out on that, and things like that. Again, it's going to be personal to you guys, but just something to start thinking about. Make a list. So lists are great. You guys should make lists for everything. I'm going to get into, I have my own slide for this list specifically, what I'm referring to later on. But what you should be doing is making a list of everything. Your goals, make a list of your code, make a list of what the man that you would like to be would look like, or sorry, not look like, but be like. What would the qualities and beliefs that he would have. But make a list and put it in a place where you're going to see it. I'll get into this more later when I talk about the list specifically. But the idea behind it is that the act of writing things down kind of like brings them into reality in a lot of ways. So I talked earlier about thoughts. Thoughts literally become things once you write them down. So I have thoughts all the time. Sometimes they're terrible, weird thoughts. Sometimes they're brilliant. But I write them all down anyway. And I actually just use my phone now, which is great because I always have it with me. And I read through them, and it's probably 90% garbage, 90% things that were just random dumb thoughts, but that 10% is really good. And I make lists of those things. So if I had a really great idea where I thought, I should write a screenplay for a children's movie called The Boogeyman about a monster that lives under the bed that dances. That's literally the thought just popped in my head right now. That's really dumb. I have to write that down, and then if I decide that's a good idea, I have to make a list of things I'm going to do in order to make that a reality. So I have to think of the name, Boogeyman, and then start working on a screenplay, and write. I have to commit to this many pages, a week or a day, and I have to start looking into getting an agent for a screenplay and find out if I know anyone that does that. And there would be a whole list associated just with that one little thought that I had. But I would make a list. And as long as it's kind of like, think of this as like you're this 1,000-armed octopus or squid that has a hand going after something that he wants in every direction. That maybe a lot of them are tied together, and a lot of them won't ever reach the thing. But eventually, you're going to have multiple arms that will reach those things. And that's sort of how you live this life that where you have these great things happening to you. And most of the people that I've met that have had have all these things in their life, it's because that's the way they live it. They're just constantly going after the things they want, regardless of what they are. All right. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. Lao Tzu. I put maybe there because no one really knows who that quote was attributed to. I think it might be Lao Tzu. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. Very, very, very truthful quote as far as I can tell in my 33 years on this earth. What you choose to think about and the way that you speak kind of trickles all the way down and becomes who you are and what you will get in your destiny, as the quote says. And it's one of those things that sounds really nice and you think, oh, well, yeah, that's bullshit though, because thoughts are just in my head. But it really, the things we decide to think about essentially make up who we are. And when you think about it, you have everything that you want in your life. Like everything that you have right now and the way things are going in your life is because that's exactly what you want. And that may sound like a weird thing, but the truth is that you chose, in most cases, to have this life over the things you really want. At some point, people say, what are you talking about? I want to be rich. Well, if you really, really wanted to be rich and be really successful, you would have spent more time and prioritized that as opposed to maybe just watching TV or sitting on the couch or playing on the internet. And I know that's a really simplified way of looking at it, and I don't really believe that 100%, but in most cases it's true. People don't live the lives they want because they never go after the things that they want. They think about it sometimes, but the thought is just a passing thought of something that's far off in the future they hope to get, and they just hope to get it, but they don't ever go towards it. And that needs to change, and that needs to stop. And anyway, so that was sort of the meaning behind that quote. So instead of just thinking about these things that you want, you need to make a list and think them through and turn them into actionable steps. All right. Become the man you want to be. Okay, so I chose a picture here of Ray Mears. Ray Mears is a outdoorsman, survivalist, teaches bushcraft. He's an English gentleman from the UK, and when in about 2005, I don't know if I told you guys the story yet. 2005, I graduated university. I moved to Toronto. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I had a film degree, which was pretty useless, and I wanted to be an actor, but only had high school and university improv, high school theater and university improv, nothing under my belt. So my future outlook was pretty dismal. I come from a very poor family, so I didn't have any money. And I had about enough money in my pocket when I moved to Toronto to last a month. I could pay my rent, eat rice and macaroni ramen for a month, and then I would be completely out of money. I tried getting a job, couldn't get a job, and things got pretty bad. I was really, really stressed out that I wasn't going to be able to pay my rent. I'd have to move back home to New Brunswick, a small little town, and I'd be a big failure. And that ate away at me. And what happened was, I thought to myself one day, I thought, okay, what if that happens? What if I run out of money? I got to live on the street. what would I do? Well, my real fear was that I don't know how to survive. Like, I don't know what I would do. I can't live in the street. So I thought, okay, well, I can deal with that fear. That fear is a legit fear that I can deal with. And so what I did was I looked up how to survive in the wild. And I looked up, I found Ray Mears. And he had this whole series called Bushcraft. It was like 3 or 4 seasons, each episode an hour long. There's like 20 episodes in each season. So I had plenty of material to get through. And I literally sat for 2 weeks learning, for like 5 hours a day, learning how to bushcraft. So learning how to survive in the wild in every different climate in the world. And at the end of it, I was not as scared of running out of money anymore. And the reason why was because I thought, well, if I run out of money now and I can't afford rent, I'll move out, I'll go to the woods, I can survive in the woods, and I'd probably be happier anyway. And that didn't seem so bad. So I do recommend getting survival training. I'm not sure if I put that in homework in one of the previous modules. I don't think I did. It's something that I think really speaks to us as men to get survival training because it's a really sort of primal, a very primal thing that if we know that we can survive in the most dire of circumstances, that gives us confidence. And the truth of the story is that after I got this, I ended up getting a job and everything ended up being fine. But it was just having the knowledge now that if everything went to shit, I would be okay, gives me a lot of confidence. And I think it will for you as well. I think it's the one thing that all men, no matter where you're from, can share and can not only share, it's there's a lot of admiration for guys that can do that too. If you can go out into the woods and you know how to start a fire and you can build a primitive shelter or know how to get water from places and exist, that's something that's respected no matter where you are. Anyway, that's the story behind that picture. So no more 0 days. So, okay, 0 days are just days in which you don't move forward. You don't do anything. You don't move forward in any of your goals. That's what's called a 0 day. And it's really easy to not have 0 days because really what it amounts to is taking one step in any of the directions in which your goals are. So, I mean, if your fitness is, let's say, a goal, which it should be for all of you guys, literally doing one push-up can be the difference between a 0 day and a non-0 day. So the idea here is no more 0 days. Every day you have to work towards one of your goals. It has to be something. There's going to be days you don't want to do anything, and that's okay. Maybe it amounts to doing a single push-up or reading a couple pages out of a book or writing a page or playing on the piano or the guitar or whatever, watching a YouTube video in another language. It doesn't matter, but there needs to be a growth every single day. And the power of cumulative growth is a very astonishing thing. I remember when I was writing my book, it seemed like when it was done that it wasn't anywhere near as difficult as I thought it would be. I literally just wrote a page or two every day for, it only ended up being probably like a year. But by the end of it, it was done. And so no more 0 days. Will future me appreciate this? So future me, there's 3 yous. There's past you, current you, and future you. And you need to respect all 3 of those. So the past you is the person that got you to where you are right now. Maybe you don't like where you are, and that's okay. You need to sort of sympathize with your past self and understand that although he maybe led you to a place where you're not quite happy, he's no longer in charge now that current you is in charge. And, thank him for getting him where you did. Maybe, past you didn't eat so bad, so you're not in terrible shape, so that's good. Appreciate what he did do. Then there's current you, where you need to make, and this is sort of where we all are, obviously, you need to make a conscious effort to not only do the things to live your current everyday life as the best possible version of you, but also do things that your future self will appreciate. And that has to do with growth. So do things for the future version of you. Eat a healthy meal, do some exercise. It may not do much for you that day, it may be uncomfortable for you that day, but future you is sure as hell going to appreciate that. And so you need to do favors for yourself in the future. Work on your goals, work on your growth, and it's all for your future self. So there needs to be a respect going both ways, I guess, every way, in order for this to all work. Excuses are the enemy. Excuses are really easy to fall into. And you have to see not only those specific excuses as bad, but all excuses. There's such things as good excuses, obviously, but for the most part, the excuses that stop us in the pursuit of our goals are all the enemy, and you have to treat them as such. Some enemies are worthy of respect, most are not, in this case, but you have to understand that it's not even really. They sound rational. They sound like things that make a lot of sense. But as soon as you start going down that path, it's like you're already screwed. So you have to understand that as soon as the excuse comes up, you have to see it as the enemy. And simply seeing it as the enemy will allow yourself to sort of push it away, see it for what it is, and focus back on the growth. So don't fall into that habit of finding excuses to not do things so that you can avoid the temporary, often, discomfort. And don't live in quiet desperation. So this is I think it was a Henry David Thoreau quote, said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And it's kind of what I'm getting at, is that most men want things. They want to have the things that they think they'll get in life. So they think, I want to be rich. I want to have this job. I want to have the really beautiful woman, the beautiful wife. But they never make any effort to go after those things. And so they live their lives thinking, one day I'll have this, one day. And then they wake up and they're 50 years old and they don't have it. And they wonder why. And the reason is because they never made a conscious effort to go after the things that they wanted. So don't be that person. Don't be the person that lives in quiet desperation. None of you guys are in there for this one particular problem of charisma because you all took this course, which tells me that you're not in that quiet desperation phase for this. But what is it for other things? In the sense of, what is it for doing the job you want to do, going after the things that you want to achieve? What is stopping you? Don't be the person that just sits there wanting it, never going after it. You need to do it. And that is really fucking hard, believe me, I know. It's very difficult. Getting, as experienced as I have with women and with teaching this stuff, is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I've had so many embarrassing situations and so many terrible, uncomfortably such things arise. But I would do it all over again, because what I got from it is, worth a million times more of those experiences, and that I'd gladly go through again to get this. So that's what you have to understand. It may seem easy to just sit there in thinking, one day I'll get it, I'll do it tomorrow. But again, think of future you. Do it for future you. Don't leave shit for future you, and don't fuck over future you by putting it off till the next day for him to do. All right. Okay, so here's where we're going to get into the list. Okay, so I want you guys, this will be part of your homework, so you can start thinking about it now. You need to make a list. And on this list, at least the three things you should have, and you can break this down even further if you want to, but there's going to be three things. The first one is 1 year. So these are things that you want to accomplish within the next year. So the 1 year, they should be actionable and specific. So don't be vague. Like, don't put stuff like get really rich or like get an amazing bod, even, would I would say still not be specific enough, or like get better with women. It needs to be very specific. You need to break it down. You need to do something daily. So this has to do with what I said earlier. Every day you need to go, work towards one of the things on this list. And of course you need to renew the list every year. So you'll end up crossing things off, which is an amazing feeling, by the way. Now, New Year's is just coming up, end of this week. What a great time to make a list. You couldn't ask for better timing. So I make a list every year, and I often forget what I put on the list, like the whole list. I have my list written down, but my list is so big that I often make several lists that I break down for months. And I work on those mostly, and I come back to the big list at the end of the year to see how much I conquered on it. And sometimes I've crossed off things that I didn't think I would cross off, or that I accomplished that I forgot I put on there. And that's a great feeling to know that you just spent the whole year and you've managed to knock off several things off that list. Very, very good feeling. But make a new list every year. Carry over the things that you don't accomplish into the next year, or maybe even ramp them up if you've achieved them and you can go further with them. But I'll give some examples of what these will look like after I explain all these. So if you're wondering what the kinds of things you should be putting on there, I'll give you some of mine so that you guys can at least understand what I mean by these. But that's 1 year. And again, like I said, you can break those down into month by month or week or even day if you want. Put the list somewhere you're going to see it. I usually put my list, I have like a daily list that I have. I use software now, but before that, when I wasn't as structured, I had a list that I would literally put in front of my computer because I knew I'd be there every day. And every day I had to do it. I had a sign that said no 0 days, so I'd make sure that I did something. And then I had my list of things. And I had to mark off, put a little asterisk beside them every day on things that I did, so that every day I did something on that list. And again, some days it was just, hey, I wanted to work on my French. It's 11:30 at night. I haven't done anything yet today. I'll watch some French videos on YouTube, and that's it. That's fine. That counts. So it doesn't need to be anything huge, but every day there needs to be growth. 5 years. So now this is a separate list. So the 1 year should lead to these. So these where you can be a little bit less specific, but they're just goals you want to have achieved by 5 years from now. And I'll give examples of these like I already mentioned, so you guys get a better idea what I mean here. And they should be lofty, but still reachable. So don't put necessarily anyway that I want to be able to be an accomplished pianist in 5 years. It's probably not going to happen, or I want to be I want to have discovered the cure for cancer in 5 years. Probably not going to happen. Unless, of course, you are working in those things currently and that's like your profession. Then maybe it is. So lofty, but reachable. And then the last one is 10 years. And these are essentially like your big goals. So anything that you think you could like to accomplish before the end of your life, that's something you could put in 10 years. Pretty much all of them. I mean, unless it's like I want to be a 75-year-old MMA fighter. Probably if you're 30, you probably can't put that on your 10-year list. Not going to happen. But otherwise, you can you want to put your really, really big lofty goals on here. So your 5-year one should lead to it. They're your life goals. And don't sell yourself short. This is the other thing. Don't feel like you need to make them realistic. They need to be realistic in the sense that you need to believe that you can accomplish them. But don't feel like, I want to be like, I want to upgrade from a Honda to a Lexus in 10 years. Like don't do small little things like that. Make them big. Make them like your big goals. So let's go into, this is my list, at least some of them, just to give you guys an example. So the 1 year would be something like hold conversation in a second language. So I'd be able to, have a conversation with someone in French, let's say, which was one of my goals years ago, which I can now do. And then so the 5-year version of that would be speak a second language fluently. So that would be speaking French fluently in 5 years, which I'm getting closer to. And then in 10 years would be to be trilingual. So not only have mastered French, but another additional language. And then the other one for the 1 year was play a few songs on piano. So simple chords, which I'm learning now, getting better at. I'm actually coming up on the 1 year on this one. So this is pretty much done for me. And then the 5 year would be compose a song. So being able to write my own songs on the piano. And then the 10-year one would be play several instruments. So not only playing the piano, but maybe playing guitar and banjo and maybe several other instruments. And the other one would be make over 100K a year in the first year, and in 5 years make over 300K a year, and in 10 years be a millionaire. And again, these are things that it may sound like, even for that 1 year, make over 100K a year. If you're someone who's making, let's say, less than 50K a year, you might think, well, shit, that's impossible. There's no way I'm going to leapfrog in 1 year in my profession from 50K to 100K a year salary. That may be true, But it doesn't mean you should give up on that. What it means is you should start making effort towards making 100K a year in other ways that you believe are possible. Maybe it's publishing a book. Maybe it's writing an app. Maybe it's starting your own side business. I always had side hustles, always. Now I run Love Systems, so I don't have time for side hustles really. But a year ago, before I was doing this, I had like 5 other side hustles going on. Because whether I got a job that made me 100K a year or not, I was sure as hell going to make it so that I would make that much through the combination of all my other efforts. So I was buying and selling cars, fixing them up and reselling them. I was making art, selling it. I was writing articles. I was making other kinds of products and stuff. I was always had half a dozen things at least on the go that I thought could each individually possibly make me over 100K a year. So don't just think because you're stuck in a job that you know will never make that much within the next year that you can't do it. You can always do it as long as you break it down and just sort of get all those tentacles out there, like I mentioned earlier. And then, and then 300K. So once you make the 100K, now it's like, okay, how do I, amp this up? And then millionaire is something that, for the 10-year ones, it's not like once you get 5 years along, you got to start looking at how to get to those points. But otherwise, they're just sort of the distant horizon at this point. And then the last one is finished book. So if you're writing a book, you want to finish writing that book by the end of the year. Within 5 years, you want to have it be a published author, which is a hell of a lot easier nowadays. You can pretty much just write a book and be considered a published author. So I guess that's not necessarily a 5-year goal. But I guess a respected published author might be a better way to put it. And then 10 years would be a best-selling author, which means that you would have written something in your field or your niche to be considered a best-selling author. Now, these are all examples. Other things on my list specifically would be, there's a lot of small things they put on there, like having an appreciation for like fine wines and liquor, which is kind of a lot of people think that's like a cop-out one, which I guess it kind of is. Because really, all you have to do to make a non-zero day for that one is like buy a nice bottle of wine, or scotch or something, and have a glass of scotch, which is a great way to make it a non-zero day. Have a drink. But if that's your goal, you want to be able to recommend. So the way that would work on this one might be in year 1, be able to recommend nice wines to people. In 5 years, be able to hold a conversation with wine experts, and in 10 years, being able to be considered an expert for wine and scotch amongst, let's say, your friends, or if you're at a party or in your social group or whatever. So something like that. Other ones that I put with, I wanted to learn how to sword fight. I wanted to learn how to ride a horse. I wanted to learn, what else? Several languages, different instruments. Most of mine related to the Errol Flynn, like I mentioned earlier. One thing I wanted to do was, one thing I read in My Wicked Ways, he had the exact same thing where he said, I wanted to read the classics because I felt like the idea of what a man should be is he would know the classics. So then he spent several months of his life in his 20s, Errol Flynn, just reading all the classics of literature. And he didn't like it. He didn't really even enjoy them, but he felt that he had to do it because he wanted to be like, a learned man and be able to hold those conversations, and it made him feel better about himself. And in the end, he was really glad that he did, and he used it as like became a piece of his identity. I was the same way. So, being a well-read person, that was one of the things that I wanted to do. So it was, reading Hemingway and reading all the classics of literature and knowing what they're about and understanding them enough that I could talk about them. Not only because it's important and I want to pretend to be an intellectual, but because the kind of person, the man that I wanted to be, he would do that. And so I needed to do it too. And that was the idea. So that's sort of what I'm getting at with these. So keep that in mind when you're creating your lists. All right, so homework. So we reached the end here. So the homework should be pretty obvious, since I think I spoiled it all during the course of the module. So the first piece of the homework is make your list. Your 1-year list, your 5-year list, your 10-year list. And again, you can break these down further. It might even be worth doing a 1-year, a 3-year, and then maybe a 5-year as well, but a 3-year especially. I find that 5 years can be a long time. 3 years has a bit more urgency to it, especially when you're younger and things tend to happen a lot quicker. So if you're younger, maybe put a 3-year one on there, and then but again, you can break those down too. So 1 month lists or 1 week lists or daily lists even. Second piece of homework from today on: no more 0 days. Put a big sign in your room or in front of you, somewhere that you'll read every day that says no more 0 days. Every day you got to take a step towards one of your goals. No matter how small, there needs to be a step. And then the last point of homework is read. I gave some examples here. I can throw some more up in the Facebook group. The ones I'd like you guys to read would be Think and Grow Rich, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, Good to Great is another one. How to Win Friends and Influence People would be another one. Read My Wicked Ways if Errol Flynn is someone who interests you. It's not necessarily a good book on how to run a business or how to learn a skill, but it's a great book on sort of the life of a man who sort of lived his life in the pursuit of adventure and his own path to stuff that he wanted to conquer and accomplish, and lived a very extraordinary life. So great example of that. But let's I'll open it up to questions now. If you guys have any questions about the module, let me just bring up my thing right here. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, fire away. Oh, you guys are making jokes in the comments here. Stephen Covey, that's right. Alan Lyons mentioned about 7 Secrets of Highly Successful People. Yeah, great book. It's one that's been thrown around a lot in my industry, and I don't like reading books that are in my niche, in terms of like books about how to be better with women and stuff. And I mean, that one's not, but that one was a book that a lot of people that are in my niche would recommend, and I ended up reading it, and yeah, very, very, very good. Yes, rest in peace. Oh, is he dead? I didn't even know he was dead. Good stuff, though. Any questions you guys have? Comments? I hope you guys all had a great holidays and enjoyed hopefully some time off. I know that we ending now at an interesting time with Christmas, and then, like I mentioned before, the New Year. This Thursday, so 2 days, is our very last class that Chris will be doing, and I'll probably be on board that one for as well. Alan Lyon says his 10+ year goals just a bit too unrealistic. 10+, it really depends what it is. I mean, the point when it gets to 10+, the reason why I don't like that is because it's so far off in the future that you're almost saying, I'm not even going to think about that yet. So then the point is, like, why are you even writing it down? Unless it's something like I want to be able to retire, with very comfortably, young, and maybe you're in your early 20s. Okay, that might be a 10+ year goal, because odds are you're not going to retire when you're 30. Maybe you will, but that might be one. But they wouldn't necessarily be things you need to write down, because they're just going to take up time that it's not going to be useful spent thinking about it. Odell says he appreciates giving examples of my goals to give them an idea of what you should be striving for. Yeah, and these should be very specific and subjective to you guys. I'm a very, very, what's the word? Like, I go after very big things, and I have a lot of cocky sort of self-assuredness when it comes to things that I think I can accomplish. And the truth is, I end up accomplishing them. And people used to tease me, when I was in high school, and I'm from a very small town, that, I used to say, like, oh, I'm going to be a movie star, or I'm going to be a famous director, or I'm going to be someone really famous one day. And people would tease me because how unrealistic that was. But I really did believe it. And it wasn't because I wanted to be famous. It was just that I had this drive that if I was going to do something, I know that I had to be the best at it. I had to be the absolute best. and I had that work ethic about it, that I wanted to I'd study everything to make sure it was the absolute best and that it was different from everybody else. And the thing is, that's something, having that drive, and it relates to the belief is what it really comes down to. I think more than anything else, the belief is what really carries it through. Because you can make all your lists, you can have these lofty aspirations, but if you don't believe that you can get them, you're sticking yourself, you're setting yourself up for a disaster. So yeah. Alan says, for the parents out there, recommend doing this homework with their kids. Yeah, I have a kid. He's only 3 years old, but I'm gonna be doing this with him when he gets to an age where he can understand it, and it is very good. I wish I was taught this when I was younger, because it would change my life. I'm lucky enough as it is that I read Think and Grow Rich and started focusing on this when I was in my early 20s, because man, it's changed my entire life. Very specific, actionable goals. Yes. Jared says it was really good. Thank you. Odell, that's a good point. Kids have big goals. Yeah. Once you're in a relationship and it's good, well, what are some potential traps to avoid or ways to keep the relationship moving forward, going well? So not really related to this talk, I guess, and at least specifically. But yeah, Yang, that's a hard question to just answer in a very short way. It's kind of a very large question to answer. Potential traps to avoid, ways to keep the relationship moving forward. Yeah, I'm gonna say, like, email me or put that on the Facebook group, because man, I could write a whole essay spanning multiple hours explaining that question. So I'm not gonna get into it on this one, but put it in the Facebook group and I'll jump in there and I'll throw some things on that. Alan says, try telling your kids what do you need to do now in order to achieve that in 10 years. Yeah, that's great. Or better yet, depending what it is, shorten it. Again, even 10 years is sort of I'll tell you right now, 10 years is safe, because that's one that a lot of people do anyway. They say, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire in 10 years. The problem is 10 years is easy. It's breaking that down to 5 years and then to year and then even more where it gets difficult, because that's where you got to start taking action and you got to be accountable. 10 years is far enough in the future that you can keep putting it off and think, it's 10 years from now. So it is very important, but just understand that it really comes down to making the smaller term goals that are really going to push that forward. Win says, how do you measure where you are in terms of skills with dating women? Is there a roadmap for things to work on to improve? If I was going to break it down, the way that I usually break it down is that if you're the guy that can comfortably go out and talk to women comfortably, doesn't have to get positive feedback from girls in the form of, touching and kissing and makeouts and things like that, but if you can go out and have a good time and make women feel comfortable, that's your first watermark or your first goal. Once you can start doing that and you're getting a physical reaction from girls, so they're starting to touch you, they're smiling, they're flirting with you, that's step 2. Once you're able to start taking action on those goals, on that feedback, so you are getting their numbers, or you are maybe kissing them or making out with them or going home with them, and you're going on dates and you're owning those dates and stuff, that's sort of the third one, in sort of a very vague way of arranging them in 3 different ways. But that's the way. I usually break it down, whereas there's unconscious incompetence, where you suck and you don't know it yet. Then there's conscious incompetence, where you still suck, but at least now you're aware of it. Like a lot of guys that start taking our courses, where they are when that happens. So they're now aware they suck with girls, but they want to get better at it. Then there's conscious competence, which is where you're getting good at it, but it's still something you got to force and think about and be very present with. And there's unconscious competence, which is where you're really good and you don't even have to think about it. And again, I think I talked about that a little bit in my Art of Movement, possibly, or one of the other modules. And those are the 4 ones that they talk about in one of the books, Malcolm Gladwell or something. Hearing you started 10 years ago makes me feel, man, I wish I started earlier. Yeah, but that's the way it always works. Even when I was 23, when I started doing this, I remember thinking, I had a student of mine, a client that was 16, took my course. Or 15, sorry, yeah, he was 15 in Australia. And I was thinking, man, I wish I started when I was 15. Like, it's one of those things, you're always going to wish you could have started earlier. But today is today. Regret is a wasted emotion. So fuck 10 years ago. You can start today and do it. And that's, it's like that old quote that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So plant it today. How did he get into the bars? He didn't. Yeah, he was seminar only. So he just showed up for the seminar and then couldn't go out with us at night. But I recently was in correspondence with him, and he became like the Mac Daddy of his high school, was like prom king, dated the hottest girls in the school, started his own business. Like the growth that he got from that was just tremendous, which is awesome. So, all right, guys, any more questions? If not, we'll end it here since we're about as much past the hour as when we started. Again, apologize for the technical difficulties and the little watermark there on the corner. That won't be there on Thursday. But I appreciate your guys' patience. It's funny, I technically started this when I was 19, but I wasn't nearly mature enough to understand the commitment it takes to improve yourself until I was 25. Yeah, it's true. I hear that a lot. It's one of those things, there's a lot of subtleties to this that you pick up as you get older. Even now at 33, a lot of the stuff that I was doing really well when I was younger and doing wrong as well, I have a much more clear understanding of, and it's funny how that happens. So, all right, guys, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you guys coming and listening to this one. And again, tune in this Thursday, just 2 days from now, for our very last class. And again, please jump in on the Facebook group. I'm going to throw up some more examples of things in there, maybe some videos and some more book recommendations. And if you have questions, throw them on there as well. All right, guys, thanks a lot, and talk to you in 2 days.